All right, guys. So last night, thousands and thousands of dock workers on the eastern seaboard of the United States went on strike to demand better wages and protections from automation replacing their jobs. So I got a lot to get into here. Let's go ahead and start off with this Associated Press article breaking down some of the basics in terms of what they're actually fighting for here. They say dock workers at ports from Maine to Texas go on strike, a standoff risking new shortages. And here's a map of where some of these strikes are taking place. You can see in Boston, New York, Philly, Wilmington, down to Tampa and over to Houston. I mean, all over the East Coast of the United States. So they say dock workers at ports from Maine to Texas began walking picket lines early Tuesday in a strike over wages and automation that could reignite inflation and cause shortages of goods if it goes on for more than a few weeks. They say the contract between the ports and about 45,000 members of the International Longshoremen's Association, or the ILA, expired at midnight, and even though progress was reported in talks on Monday, the workers went on strike. They say the strike is affecting 36 ports and is the first by the union since 1977. So workers began picketing at the port of Philadelphia shortly after midnight, walking in a circle at a rail crossing outside the port and chanting, "No work without a fair contract." Here is, a short little clip here. I'll put this on mute and play it for you guys, where these workers were out, it looks like in the pouring rain here, posted by Max Alvarez. And this is the local 333 in the port of Baltimore. And you can see some of their signs there just to get an idea of what exactly their message is. I mean, this sign says, "Profit over people is unacceptable. Support ILA workers." This one says, "Machines don't feed families." And this one says, "No work without a fair contract." So I think pretty clear, again, what exactly their demands are. They want better wages and they want protections from automation replacing their careers. Now, we continue here. They say local ILA president, this guy Boise Butler, said that workers want a fair contract that doesn't allow the automation of their jobs. They say shipping companies made billions during the pandemic by charging high prices, he said. And he says, now we want them to pay back. They're going to pay back. He said the union will strike for as long as it needs to get a fair deal, and it has leverage over the companies. And that's, putting it mildly, right? There are obviously billions, if not tens of billions of dollars that flow through these ports. And so, yeah, if you have thousands of port workers going out on strike and, you're causing sort of a blockade to happen, then that's going to have a massive impact on the U.S. economy. I think that's pretty self-explanatory, right? So my immediate reaction to that would be, okay, these workers, clearly, all of them worked through COVID. Some of them died. Some of them got, severely ill. They put in the work. They made these companies billions and billions of dollars. Maybe just meet their demands, right? They're not asking for $1 million paycheck. They're asking for stuff that I think is pretty reasonable. We'll read that here in a second. But, if you're concerned about massive catastrophic damage that could come in the form of inflation to the U.S. economy, then have these companies meet their demands, right? There's going to be a lot of people you'll see over the next couple of days who blame these workers and say, oh, they're being greedy and unreasonable and whatever the case may be. But as we get more to some of the facts and figures here, I think it's pretty clear who should be to blame for this strike. It's the corporations who, again, are raking in billions of dollars off the backs of these workers, right? So they say, quote, "This is not something that you start and you stop. We're not weak," he added, pointing to the union's importance to the nation's economy. And the union's opening offer in the talks was a 77% pay rise over the next 6 years of the life of the contract, right? So 77% over a 6-year contract, with President Harold Daggett, we'll watch a clip of him here in a minute, saying it's necessary to make up for inflation and years of small raises. ILA members make a base salary of about $81,000, but they say they can make much more than that. With a lot of overtime, basically. So, I mean, $81,000, you factor in inflation, you factor in the fact that it looks like they haven't really gotten any significant raise in years. I mean, I think a 77% raise isn't something that's wild. I think it's something that these companies could definitely afford to do. But they continue. They say Monday evening, the alliance said that it had, and the alliance is obviously representing the corporate side of this, said that it increased its offer to 50% raises over 6 years. So, I mean, they're not that far off, right? If you can afford to do 50% over 6 years, why not 77% or somewhere closer to what the workers are demanding? They say that they pledge to keep limits on automation in place from the old contract. Clearly, that's not, something these workers are willing to accept. They want updated and more enhanced protections from automation. They say the union wants a complete ban on this automation, and it wasn't clear just how far apart both sides were. So in a statement early on Tuesday, the union said it rejected the alliance's latest proposal because it, quote, fell far short of what the ILA rank and file members are demanding in wages and protections against automation, and they haven't had formal negotiations since June. They say they're prepared to fight as long as necessary and to strike for whatever period of time it takes. Now, continuing down here, they say supply chain experts say consumers won't see an immediate impact from the strike because most retailers stocked up on goods, I guess in anticipation of this, moving ahead shipments of holiday gift items. But if it goes on for more than a few weeks, a work stoppage would significantly snarl the nation's supply chain, potentially leading to higher prices and delays in goods reaching households and businesses. So again, sounds like these companies need to get to work, sit down at the table, and meet these workers' demands, right, to avoid that kind of situation. They say here an estimation from JP Morgan shows that it could cost the economy between $3.8 billion to $4.5 billion per day. Per day. So we're talking, again, about these workers bringing in billions and billions of dollars on a daily basis to the U.S. economy. And we're saying, well, we can't afford to give them any sort of significant pay rise. I mean, come on. Now, we move on, because we have this clip here from the chief negotiator of this union. Let's go ahead and watch a little bit of what he said. This clip has been floating around, going relatively viral, because he has some, I think, pretty strong words, threatening to cripple the U.S. economy if the demands are not met. Let's go ahead and watch some of this.
But today's world, it's changing into the future. They're not making millions no more. They're making billions, and they're spending it fast as they make it. I want a piece of that for my men. Because when they made their most money was during COVID. When my men had to go to work on those piers every single day, when everybody stayed home and went to work. Not my men. They died out there with the virus. We all got sick with the virus. We kept them going. From Canada to Maine to Texas, Great Lakes, Puerto Rico, now the Bahamas, everybody went to work during COVID. Nobody stayed home. Well, I want to be compensated for that. I'm not asking for the world. They know what I want. They know what I want. And if they don't, well, then I have to go into the street and we have to fight for what we rightfully deserve. These people today don't know what a strike is.
Right.
When my men hit the streets, from Maine to Texas, every single port, a lockdown. You know what's gonna happen? I'll tell you. First week, be all over the news every night, boom, boom. Second week, guys who sell cars can't sell cars because the cars ain't coming in off the ships. They get laid off. Third week, malls start closing down. They can't get the goods from China. They can't sell clothes. They can't do this. Everything in the United States comes on a ship. They go out of business. Construction workers get laid off because the materials aren't coming in. The steel's not coming in. The lumber's not coming in. They lose their job. Everybody's hating the longshoremen now because now they realize how important our jobs are. Now I have the president screaming at me, I'm putting a Taft-Hartley on you. Go ahead. Taft-Hartley means I have to go back to work for 90 days. That's a cooling off period. Do you think when I go back for 90 days, those men are going to go to work on that pier? It's going to cost the company's money to pay their salaries. Well, they went from 30 moves an hour maybe to 8. They're going to be like this. Who's going to win here in the long run? You're better off sitting down and let's get a contract and let's move on with this world. In today's world, I'll cripple you. I will cripple you, and you have no idea what that means. Nobody does.
I mean, it's hard to, it's hard to not understand where this guy is coming from. Right now, again, there's two ways you could interpret this. You could look at this and say, wow, he's threatening the entirety of the U.S. economy. Other people could potentially be laid off. There could be price increases. There could be a shortage of goods. There could be all of these different consequences, and shame on him for threatening to do that. I look at this and I say, again, as he points out there, these guys are a critical piece to just the basic functionality of our country's economy, right? They bring in billions and billions of dollars of goods into the United States every single day. As pointed out here by More Perfect Union, these companies topped $400 billion in profits. $400 fucking billion just in 3 years, from 2020 to 2023. Okay, we're talking over $100 billion a year in profits. So I look at this situation and I say, these guys are worth every single penny and probably more than what they are demanding in these contracts. So the demands are not crazy. What's crazy here is that you have companies that should be to blame in this situation that are willing to cripple the US economy because they don't want to give the people who are making them those billions of dollars any sort of fair share. That's the real scandal here. It's not that this guy's threatening to cripple the US economy. It's that the companies are willing to take down the US economy. The companies are willing to risk a shortage of goods. The companies are willing to risk massive spikes in inflation or the cost of goods, right? It's the companies that are responsible for that because they're refusing to meet pretty basic demands from these workers who make them their money, right? The demands are an increase in wages, right? We're talking, again, $400 billion over a 3-year period in profits from these companies. So they're demanding a little bit of a wage increase to make up for previous, lack in wage increases, to make up for them putting their lives on the line during COVID. And they're demanding just that their careers be protected in the long run from a machine taking their job, right? You saw one of the signs. It was machines don't feed families. And that's entirely correct. Listen, if we didn't live under this dystopian capitalist hellscape of an economy that we have in place right now, automation could be a great thing. It could be an assistance to workers, right? So that they can keep making, a living, they can keep feeding their families, they can keep a roof over their head. And then you have automation that's tagged in with that can help them as a part of their job, that can increase efficiency. But given the economic system that we have in place right now, that's not what automation is used. Automation is used to replace workers, to push them out, right? To destroy jobs, to destroy lives, to destroy careers in favor of saving a few $1 million for the executives at these companies. So that's what they're fighting against, right? And again, it seems like pretty reasonable demands. Now, in terms of what the Biden administration is responding with here. You saw in that clip we just watched, this chief negotiator of the ILA, he brought up the Taft-Hartley Act. Now, Biden, was asked about this situation. He said he is against the Taft-Hartley, which is kind of a phenomenal thing for him to say. Credit for him, for saying that. Basically, it means he doesn't want necessarily to step in and to force these workers to go back to work, to basically just break the strike, similar to kind of what he how he treated the rail strike that was happening when we covered that a few years ago. But here was his official statement that he put out. Statement from President Joe Biden on the negotiations between the USMX and the ILA. He says collective bargaining is the best way for workers to get the pay and benefits they deserve. True. I have urged the USMX, which represents a group of foreign-owned carriers, to come to the table and present a fair offer to the workers of the ILA that ensures that they are paid appropriately in line with their invaluable contributions. Ocean carriers have made record profits since the pandemic, and in some cases, profits grew in excess of 800%. Compared to their profits prior to the pandemic. Think about that for a second. Their profits grew 800%. These workers are demanding a 77% wage increase over a 6-year period. Does that sound like a crazy demand given facts and figures like this? No. They say executive compensation has grown in line with those profits, and profits have been returned to shareholders at record rates. It's only fair that workers who put themselves at risk during the pandemic to keep the ports open see a meaningful increase in their wages as well. Biden, this is a solid statement. He's 100% correct, because not only is he calling out the fact that, these companies, the shareholders, the executives, the CEO, the company in general has raked in record profits over the last few years, but he also points out the entire point of having unions in the first place. The whole point of having a union is so that workers can get together democratically, collectively, and decide when necessary to use their power and go on strike, right? To refuse to provide their labor to the benefit of these companies. And when they do that, they cost these companies potentially millions, potentially billions of dollars, depending on what the situation is. That's the entire point of a union. That is the power that a union carries, right? That's the leverage that a union has in these contract negotiations. So if you're unwilling to stand next to unions when they actually decide to go on strike, and there are real consequences, if you refuse to stand with them in that situation, then you're not pro-union. Now, it looks like, again, here, based on this statement, that Biden is standing alongside the workers, right? He's saying he's not, calling them out for making outrageous demands or whatever, or demanding that they go back to work. I mean, he's calling out the corporations. So, rare situation here on this channel where I will give credit to Joe Biden, pending what happens. You know, if this continues to go for weeks and weeks and weeks and there are potential economic consequences to that, will he then step in and potentially sabotage their strike? Yet to be seen. But, you know, I mean, he's not wrong. He's not wrong. So solidarity with these workers. I hope that they get every single thing that they are asking for. And yeah, we'll have to keep going on this story.
Politic guy has the best politic. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying